You may have noticed I've been talking a lot about Star Wars ever since the new Star Wars movie came out, and I've also been reviewing a lot of space games related to Star Wars, and we can't really not talk about this game in particular because this is probably the most massive Star Wars game ever created, and this game is, of course, Star Wars: The Old Republic. Today we're going to be talking about this game, and I'm going to show you what it's all about and why you may consider playing it. Welcome to What the Math. Now let's start by talking about what this game is. Essentially, this is a massive multiplayer game similar to games like World of Warcraft, and this game was released in 2011 and basically is trying to be a mixture between a single player driven or storyline driven game where you're playing as a character in a super massive story that will take you probably hundreds of hours to finish, and at the same time also giving you the opportunity to play with other players in a kind of a online environment where you do have PvP, you have cooperative quests, and you have various missions that you play with other players. Now, at the same time, this game is actually a continuation of a series of games from BioWare, the company that was essentially responsible for making this game, and the series was known as Knights of the Old Republic. These games were actually very popular. They had a lot of really good reviews and of course had a lot of fans, including myself. However, when Star Wars: The Old Republic came out, it had a mixed review, and specifically this was because it was trying to copy World of Warcraft too much. But since its original release, it's actually changed quite a lot and now has developed into its own kind of a multiplayer game. Now actually, I don't want to call it a multiplayer game because for me this is actually a single player game that you play with other people, and if you do decide to play this game, you really need to think of it as a kind of a single player experience because it's really all about the story. Now, this is actually the most expensive MMO to ever be developed, and I believe they've spent something like $200 million developing it because here there is just a tremendous amount of voice acting. Everyone in this game is actually voice acted, including every single hero, every single person you meet, and of course every single character.
Back already? That was quick.
T7 downloaded some of Angril's communication logs, but the rest were destroyed.
Some intel is better than none. At least the Empire has one less hidey hole. I'll put together a team, see if we can secure that island for our side. You should report to General SWTOR. Be seeing you.
But most importantly is that every single scene you play and every single person you talk to has an actual cutscene and a voice-acted cutscene where you basically interact with them as if this was an actual movie. And the storyline in this game is its strongest point. Basically, each of the classes, and there's actually 8 classes in here, has a very unique storyline that you progress through. Like, for example, if you decide to become a Jedi Knight, you start as a Padawan, and you have a certain quest to complete to become a Jedi Master. But to get there, you'll need to advance through something like hundreds of hours of different quests, different stories, and of course, go from planet to planet trying to complete this ultimate quest. And although this game is meant for younger players, there's actually some stories in here that are relatively mature in nature, and for one of the quests, and I don't want to spoil which one, you may even have to kill your family members, which is of course something that you don't actually expect from a game that's meant for younger players. And what I really like about this game is that it does a fantastic job at making you really feel like a Star Wars character, and obviously everything from the shape of the galaxy to the amount of planets you get to visit to characters you meet to the actual size of the world, it does really feel like you're actually in Star Wars. And what makes this game a little bit different from other online games is that it actually offers you various companions that you get to recruit for your quests. And these companions don't just play a role of someone who supports you during fights, but of course will also do various other tasks for you. Like, for example, they'll actually help you in crafting various items or in acquiring more money. And since each of the different classes gets different characters, you'll actually get to experience some really unique companions out there. And some of them can even have a romantic relations with you, which is something that BioWare is known for in doing in their games. But although originally this game was actually subscription based, and I used to have a subscription where you would have to pay money for it every month, now a subscription is absolutely optional, and this game has become a free-to-play with a really good model. So basically, if you just sign up as a free-to-play player, you will have access to hundreds of hours of gameplay, and you won't even feel any pressure to buy a subscription unless you really become a kind of a hardcore player where you just want to explore everything. And the way subscription model works is that, first of all, it gives you a monthly stipend. It basically gives you something called cartel coins, which you can use to purchase various items in the store. But at the same time, it also gives you monthly reward, anything from a special item to some kind of a cool additional feature to possibly like a title or even your own passive companion that kind of flies around you and displays some kind of a sign that says, hey, this guy is awesome, he's a subscriber, so be his friend. But anyway, so all of these items are usually cosmetic. They don't really make you more powerful, but they do make you feel special in the game. And over the years, this game has changed quite a lot. So in the first few expansions, they've added things like legacy enhancements, which basically allow you to have different levels on top of your character. So for every additional character, you can create a sort of a kind of a family-like progression. So under the same name, you'll have additional bonuses depending on what legacy level your family has. You obviously have things like guild banks. There is a group finder in here, different war zones that you can play with other players and try to defeat more powerful monsters or more powerful bosses. There are also heroic space missions, which are basically kind of like 2 or 3 hour long quests where you go through a specific space mission to either save a spaceship or possibly rescue someone or destroy someone. And all of these are fully voiced and have a really unique storyline as well. There's also something that's called Space PvP, which is basically a space simulation that you play against other players using a spacecraft that has its own level model, and you can actually unlock new spaceships, you can create more powerful designs and recruit pilots for your space program to try to defeat other players. There have also been various new planets added, the new mounts, new companions. There are also space missions that are played more like on a rail space shooter, where basically you fly around shooting different targets, and this usually rewards you with some sort of an item and experience at the end. And this is what you can see on the screen right now. Basically, it kind of looks pretty, it's very easy to play, and it's sort of a way for you to break down monotony of leveling up and doing quests. And with the new expansion called Shadow of Revan and the new additional content that was released recently, you now have 2 more planets to visit and a whole set of new single-player missions that you can play through and basically discover a completely new story that is actually really, really cool. So in terms of the gameplay amount and in terms of content, this game has a tremendous amount of stuff for you. And if you don't really know what exactly is happening here and how come there's no 3CPO or no R2-D2 or Luke Skywalker, and that's because this game takes place about 3,000 years before the movies. Essentially, you're playing in the world before the Star Wars that we know from the movies with Skywalkers and Leia and all that. So this is the prequel world to the movies. And so what you get to discover by playing this game is essentially the history of Star Wars that we know today. And if you're really careful at reading everything that you discover in the game, specifically if you discover all of the so-called holo records that you can discover in this game by basically exploring various planets and various secret locations on every planet, and actually once you discover them you also get a bonus for your character, so it is kind of worth trying to find all of them. But basically, as you discover these secret holo recordings, you'll get to learn the entire history of the Star Wars universe. But even though the story in this game is pretty fun and there's so much to explore and discover, there are of course some shortcomings as well. So one biggest concern that many people have with this game is that it's a little bit too easy. Specifically, the combat here is a little bit too easy. And usually most of the combat is based on you attacking a group of enemies, usually 3 or more, with sometimes one of them being a little bit more difficult than the others. And you and your companion, or possibly people that join you, have to essentially go through these various groups of enemies that don't really do much. They kind of just stand there, and they will obviously hit you back if you hit them, but as you walk across different areas, you'll just notice these guys standing in the distance, and they'll probably just be chilling there until you attack them. Also, most of the quests here are relatively easy to find and to follow, and sometimes they even seem a little bit too linear, like you basically are told to go from one place to another, to another, to another, until you move to a new planet. And unfortunately, you do kind of have to follow the quest if you want to progress through the game, because without the quest, it actually is kind of difficult to level up and to move to a new location. But at the same time, there's so many different quests you can choose from and so many optional quests for you to do that sometimes you actually are overwhelmed with them. And then there's of course the gear and different items that you find in this game. There's actually too many. I think there's too many, and I think it's a negative. But at the same time, there's something called adaptive gear, which basically is kind of a nice feature where you can use a lightsaber or an armor for your character, and it will adapt itself to you as you progress through levels, or will change its own stats depending on the character that equips this gear. But for people that actually like to have lots of different variety and choices, there's definitely a lot of gear to choose from. The other main feature in this game is that you usually have a choice between a light and a dark decision in most of your quests. So for example, you can either choose to save someone or choose to kill them, and all of these decisions will usually come into play relatively early in a game. But unfortunately, as you progress through the story, you'll realize that despite the fact that you are becoming more evil or more good, it doesn't really affect your game in any other way. So yes, there are some items that are only meant for light players and only dark players, but usually you have so much choice of items that you don't really have to concern yourself with them. So in the original Knight of the Old Republic, certain really unique items require you to be a super evil or a super good character. But in this game, unfortunately, you'll always find something that doesn't have these requirements, so you don't really have to become a super dark or super light player. But nevertheless, it's kind of good to have these additional features, and they do make the game feel a little bit different from other multiplayer online games. There's also, of course, other features in this game, like for example, there are world bosses, and some of these bosses are actually creatures that you don't really get to see in the movies, but you do read about them in the books, and so it's good to actually see them recreated in this particular environment, including the infamous Crate Dragon that I talked about in one of my previous videos. And these bosses will, of course, require you to have friends or someone you group up with to try to defeat them. Also, this game offers you to have your own housing, and in this game it's actually called strongholds, and basically this is your player house, which you can use to store all kinds of different items that you find, or you can try to decorate it. You can even create your own cantina in there with your own dancers if you want. Unfortunately, there will be no music, but you can make your own music if you desire. And essentially it allows you to have a place for you to kind of visit and to relax. And of course, this is not everything this game has, but these are the main features, and there's just so much more that this game offers for players that like to collect things, for players that like to achieve things, and for players that just like to fight each other and try to be the best PvP player in the world. But for me personally, what I really enjoy about this game, just based on the fact that it's a free-to-play game now, is of course the storyline, and the storyline is really strong with this one. So even though the other features in this game are not as strong as some of the other online games, I think this game has the strongest story of them all. And the new expansion really pushes the things toward the single-player RPG that BioWare is known for, and the story here is just brilliant. But unfortunately, this expansion is paid, and you do have to pay $20 to purchase it. But if you do get it, you actually get some additional features like an extra companion and a lot of other things as well. But to be honest, I think overall this game is totally worth at least trying. Since it's free to play, you can just try it and see if you like it. And if you do enjoy it, you may actually consider purchasing the expansions and continuing the story and trying to become the most powerful Jedi, Sith, or possibly bounty hunter in this particular universe. For me personally though, I actually do enjoy progressing through these stories. I've actually tried most of the characters and I try to advance through most of the stories, and I haven't really finished any of them yet because it does take quite a lot of time. All in all though, this game is actually quite enjoyable. The community here is actually quite friendly as well. And there's definitely a lot for a Star Wars universe fan to enjoy, to explore, and to learn as well. But most importantly, some of the creatures and some of the things that we don't get to see in the movies are actually in this game. You also get to visit planets that you don't get to see in the movies as well. And most importantly, you get to go to the home planet of the Sith. So if you do enjoy Star Wars Galaxy and Star Wars Universe, and if you do enjoy the actual storyline, you may want to give this game a try and check it out by yourself. However, if you're looking for an original massively multiplayer online game, or if you're looking for a game that brings something original, something unique to the plate, this is probably not the game you're looking for. Because the strongest point for this game is, of course, its single player mode and its storyline. And anyway, that's really all I wanted to say about this game. And personally, I think it's super fun, and I think that's what a game should be. Now, is it worth buying a subscription, or is it worth trying to buy one of the expansion packs? I think it is, because you get to discover a storyline that you would not really know about otherwise. And if you're a Star Wars fan, you may want to discover the history of Star Wars universe by playing this game to its fullest. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Check out some of the other space games I've reviewed in the past, and check out some of the other games I looked at as well. And if you want to learn more about the Star Wars universe, subscribe and follow the videos I've been making using the Universe Sandbox 2 about the Star Wars universe. Thank you for watching, and game you later, guys. Bye bye.